Ever pondered how much control our habits have over our lives? It's a question that's worth asking, and today we're diving deep into the world of habits, the silent puppeteers of our lives. Habits, as it turns out, are deeply ingrained psychological patterns that dictate much of our behavior. They're like invisible scripts running in the background of our minds, influencing our choices, reactions, and even our thoughts. From the moment we wake up to the moment we close our eyes at night, habits are at play. They determine how we start our day, how we work, how we interact with others, and how we unwind. But how do these habits form? Well, habits are born out of repetition. When we repeat a behavior over and over, our brain begins to automate it. This automation is a way for our brains to conserve energy. It's like putting a car on autopilot. Once a habit is formed, it doesn't require conscious thought or effort. It just happens. And this is where the power of habits truly lies. They have the ability to run our lives, often without us even realizing it. They can propel us forward or hold us back. They can lead us to success or steer us towards failure. They're like the invisible threads that weave the fabric of our lives. But here's the good news. Just as habits can be formed, they can also be changed. We have the power to rewrite these invisible scripts, to take control of our habits and in turn our lives. But to do so, we first need to understand them, to recognize their existence and their influence. It's like a game of chess. To win, you need to understand how the pieces move, their strengths and their weaknesses. Similarly, to gain control over our habits, we need to understand their mechanics, their triggers, and their rewards. The first step towards gaining control over our habits is understanding their power and acknowledging their existence. Only then can we begin the journey of self-improvement and truly harness the power of habits. Did you know that habits work in a loop? That's right, each habit you have operates within a cycle known as the habit loop. This loop consists of three main components: the cue, the routine, and the reward. Let's break it down. The cue or trigger is what initiates the habit. It's the spark that lights the fuse. It could be anything from a specific time of day, a certain place, a particular emotion, or even a group of people. For example, if you habitually check your phone first thing in the morning, the cue might be the act of waking up. Next up is the routine. This is the behavior that you automatically engage in once the cue has been triggered. In our example, the routine is reaching for your phone and going through your various apps. It's the action we often think of when we talk about our habits. Finally, we have the reward. This is the reason the habit exists in the first place. It's the payoff that your brain is seeking. For our phone-checking habit, the reward might be a sense of connection or the satisfaction of being up to date. Understanding this loop is crucial in gaining control over your habits. It's like being given the blueprint of a building. Once you know how it's constructed, you can start making changes. You can begin to identify your cues, understand your routines, and recognize the rewards that drive your behaviors. Let's take a common habit loop, for instance. Stress eating. The cue may be feeling overwhelmed or anxious. The routine is reaching for that bag of chips or that bar of chocolate. The reward? Temporary relief from the stress, a moment of pleasure. By recognizing this loop, one can begin to devise strategies to alter it, perhaps replacing the unhealthy snack with a healthier option or a completely different routine like a quick walk or a few minutes of meditation. Decoding the habit loop gives us the blueprint to alter or break it. It's the first step towards understanding why we do what we do and how we can start to make meaningful changes. It's the key to unlocking a life of healthier, more productive habits. And remember, knowledge is power. And now that we've decoded the habit loop, how can we break it? Breaking the habit loop is a three-step process. It begins with identifying the cue, that spark that initiates the habit. What triggers your habit? A place, a time, a person, a feeling? Pay close attention to what you're doing, who you're with, and where you are when the urge to perform your habit strikes. Once you've identified your cue, the next step is to alter the routine. This is the part of the habit loop where you carry out the habitual behavior. The trick here is not to eliminate the routine, but to replace it with a healthier, more productive one. For example, if you have a habit of reaching for a sugary snack when you're stressed, try taking a brisk walk or reading a chapter of a book instead. Now let's look at the final piece of the puzzle, the reward. Changing the reward involves finding a new way to satisfy the craving that your habit fulfills. It's crucial to choose a reward that provides similar benefits to the original one. If your old habit was eating junk food to cope with stress, a new routine like taking a walk might provide a similar stress-relieving benefit. But how do you make these changes stick? Here are a few practical strategies. First, be patient. Changing a habit doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to form new neural pathways in your brain, so don't be discouraged if progress seems slow. Second, be consistent. Consistency is key when it comes to habit change. Try to perform your new routine at the same time each day to reinforce your new habit loop. Third, make your intentions clear. Write down your goals and the steps you plan to take to achieve them. This can help keep you focused and motivated. Finally, don't forget to celebrate your victories, no matter how small. Each time you successfully complete your new routine, give yourself a pat on the back. This can boost your motivation and make the habit change more enjoyable. Breaking the habit loop requires commitment and consistency, but with these steps, it becomes an achievable task. Breaking old habits is only half the battle. The other half is forming new beneficial habits. But how, you might ask? Well, let's dive right in. Remember the habit loop we discussed earlier? It's time to use it to our advantage. The habit loop consists of a cue, a routine, and a reward. To form a new habit, we need to establish a strong cue, a simple routine, and an enticing reward. Let's take the example of a beneficial habit many of us aspire to have, regular exercise. The cue could be as simple as setting out your workout clothes the night before. Seeing these clothes first thing in the morning acts as a visual reminder, a cue, that it's time to exercise. The routine, in this case, is the workout itself. Whether it's a brisk walk, a yoga session, or a high-intensity interval training session, it's the action you take in response to your cue. Now the crucial part, the reward. It's important to have a reward that's truly motivating. It could be the endorphin rush you feel after a good workout, the satisfaction of ticking off exercise from your daily to-do list, or even a healthy post-workout snack you enjoy. Forming new habits isn't always easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to find the right cues and rewards that work for you. It takes patience and persistence. And sometimes, it takes a bit of trial and error. But remember, every new habit starts with a single repetition. Each time you repeat your new habit, you're reinforcing the habit loop. You're making the cue stronger, the routine easier, and the reward more enticing. So let's start small. Pick one beneficial habit you'd like to form. Identify your cue, your routine, and your reward. Then start repeating. With patience and persistence, forming new habits can become as automatic as the old ones. After all, we're not just breaking old habits, we're building a new, healthier, happier you. Let's recap what we've learned today about habits and how to control them. We started off by understanding the power of habits. Habits are powerful because they form the invisible architecture of our daily lives. They guide our actions, even when we're not fully aware of them. They can be our best friends or our worst enemies, depending on how they influence our actions and decisions. We then delved into the concept of the habit loop. This loop consists of three elements: a cue, a routine, and a reward. The cue triggers the habit. The routine is the behavior itself, and the reward is what we get at the end of it. This loop is the basis of all habits and understanding. It is the first step towards gaining control over them. Next, we explored strategies for breaking the habit loop. This isn't about eliminating habits entirely, but rather replacing harmful routines with beneficial ones. It's about identifying the cues and rewards that drive our habits and finding ways to respond differently when these cues arise. It's a process of conscious and deliberate change, requiring a good deal of self-awareness and determination. Finally, we discussed how to form new beneficial habits. This is where the real magic happens. By consciously choosing our cues and rewards, we can create new routines that serve us better. We can replace old, harmful habits with new, beneficial ones that help us achieve our goals and live healthier, happier lives. But remember, gaining control over habits is a process, not a one-time event. It requires ongoing effort, patience, and resilience. There will be setbacks and challenges along the way, but with the right knowledge and tools, we can navigate them successfully. Remember, the power to control our habits rests in our hands. With knowledge, awareness, and consistent effort, we can break free from harmful habits and form new beneficial ones. Here's to our journey towards self-improvement.